Welcome to week 4 of Bible Studies for Life. We're continuing in a series of lessons this week on kind of mentoring and those who encourage and mentor others. Today we're at an Old Testament story, the book of Esther and Mordecai. I'm just going to encourage you to take some time this week and read the book of Esther. I think it will help you because we're just grabbing a couple of hits out of this book, but it'll help you to have a good picture of what happens in the whole story. It's not real long. It won't take you too long, but I'd encourage you to read that whole book so you've got a good idea of what the story is. And even if you know, refamiliarize yourself with it. Before we look at the passage, I want to be sure that you subscribe. If you haven't already, hit the little subscribe button down there. Like the video, comment, share. If you've got questions, put those in. Appreciate it if you do that. If you want to support our ministry, you can go to give.ExposedToChrist.com right here. And you can give to our ministry, help support our teaching, as well as the mission work that we do. So let's look at Esther chapter 2 is where we're going to start. Okay, we're in captivity, Babylonian captivity. Esther and Mordecai, they're both in captivity. Let's read. In the fortress of Susa, there was a Jewish man named Mordecai, the son of Jair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, a Benjamite. Kish had been taken into exile from Jerusalem with the other captives when King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon took King Jeconiah of Judah into exile. Mordecai was the legal guardian of his cousin Hadassah, that is, Esther, because she had no father or mother. The young woman had a beautiful figure and was extremely good looking. When her father and mother died, Mordecai later had adopted her as his own daughter. Okay, so Mordecai is Jewish, a Benjamite. Right? That's who he is. And he's in exile. This is what's happened. The Israelites are all taken to Babylon under King Nebuchadnezzar into Babylon as captives. And they serve in different places and live their lives there. They're living out for 70 years, plus they're in captivity, some of them longer than that, right? And then there is Esther. Esther is his adopted daughter, right? Her mother and father had died, right? So he adopted her as his own daughter. Okay, we've got the characters. Esther eventually gets taken into the king's court. He becomes one of his wives, basically. He's in the court. And then this thing happens where there's some jealousy against the Israelites. And so some of the people the leaders in Babylon work to create a law that says we're going to, basically we're going to have this day where we're going to have, we'll say, hardship on the Israelites, okay? It's going to be very bad for them, and there's a lot of trickery that takes place in that. Okay, so Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree ordered in Susa, ordering their destruction, so that Hathach might show it to Esther. Okay, this is a servant, right, of Esther. Esther's now in the king's court, right? And so he gives this a copy of this order that is ordering the destruction of the Jews, right? So he says, show it to her, explain it to her, and command her to approach the king. Command her, tell her she's got to go talk to the king. Implore his favor, plead with him personally for her people. And Hathach came and repeated Mordecai's response to Esther. So he says, look, here's hope for us. Esther's in the court. Let's let her know what's about to happen so that she can talk to the king, implore his favor, plead with him for her people, this begging on behalf of her people that they be saved from what's going to occur. Okay. So Esther spoke to Hathach and commanded him to tell Mordecai, well, all the royal officials and the people of the royal provinces know that that one law applies to every man or woman who approaches the king in the inner courtyard and who has not been summoned, the death penalty, unless the king extends the gold scepter, allowing that person to live. I have not been summoned to appear before the king for the last 30 days. Esther's response was reported to Mordecai. Okay, so she sends a note back through this intermediary, Hathach, and says, look, there's one law if you come to the inner courtyard and you haven't been summoned. There's one law if you show up wanting to meet with the king and he hasn't asked for you to come, and that law is you get the death penalty. You're going to die. So it's a pretty good way of keeping just random visitors out, right? You want to show up and talk to the king. If he hasn't asked you to come, then you get the death penalty unless he extends the gold scepter, which allows you to live. Esther says, this is what happens. You want me to just go talk to the king? It's not just show up and say, hey, king, we need a favor. If you show up and he doesn't extend the scepter to you, you're going to die. That's just the way it is. That the law is clear. Everybody knows it. Everybody around him knows that, right? So Mordecai told the messengers, they're going back and forth right here, to reply to Esther, don't think that you will escape the fate of all the Jews because you're in the king's palace. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place, but you and your father's family will be destroyed. Who knows, perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. This is that phrase that we're probably very familiar with from the book of Esther, right? Okay. So Mordecai's message back, his encouragement, he's trying to help her understand the dire nature of this, but then also encouraging her and helping her understand why she's got to do this. She must do this. But I love this statement that he says. He says, first, don't think you're going to get away. Don't think that just because you're in the palace, when they say they're going to kill all the Jews, they're not going to kill you too. Don't think that she's really some of the focus of this. Don't think you're going to get away with this, right? And then I love this. If you keep silent, well, relief and deliverance is going to come from another place. But you and your father's family, that's me, we're going to die, right? But God's going to save his people. Well, this is a great statement of faith from Mordecai. He believes in the Lord, that the Lord's going to save the Lord's people, that the Jewish people are going to survive this. The Israelites are going to survive. God's going to deliver them from somewhere else. You're not going to survive it, but God will save the people if you don't do what God gives you the opportunity to do. But he says, who knows, maybe you're here for just this time. Have you ever thought, Esther, that you're in the place you're in just for this, that it wasn't just because you were beautiful and because the king wanted you and all of that. Maybe it was that God put you there for this. This is so great. It's such a great way to think about life and our relationship with the world and our relationship with God. To think that I'm not just here randomly. My life is not just random. If I am submitting to God and I'm desiring to please God, then the opportunities that God puts before me, I take those opportunities understanding that God gave me those that wasn't just chance. It wasn't just happenstance. It wasn't because I made it happen. Maybe it was because the Lord wanted me there for some specific reason. There was something, there was purpose in my life. And Mordecai is telling Esther, this may be the reason that you're there. This is the purpose for your life, is to save the Jews. This is it. Also, what I love about this is the encouragement, but also the challenge, right? It is, look, you're the one that's going to do this. You can do, and he is really pouring into Esther from a distance through a messenger, right, an intermediary, but he's pouring into her to let her know this is why God has put you there. So Esther sends this reply to Mordecai: go and assemble all the Jews who can be found in Susa and fast for me. Don't eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my female servants will also fast in the same way. And after that I will go to the king, even if it is against the law. If I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went and did everything Esther had commanded him. I love this. He follows her commands, right? He says, you find everybody and y'all fast 3 days. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to do the same thing. My servants, we're going to fast for 3 days, asking God's favor, asking for God to move, right? Right? And then I'll go, and if I perish, I perish. This is not the Esther back here, right? This Esther that says, look, you go in there, you're going to die, right? This one, you're going to die. That's what happens, the death penalty. This is the Esther that says, well, if I perish, I perish. If I die, I die. You can see the evidence of Mordecai's pouring into her and encouraging her and challenging her. You see that, right? Where she is now ready to, now, and a recognition that God's going to have to do this through me. I'm going to have to fast and get prepared spiritually, but the Lord's going to have to do this through me. And if I perish, I perish. I'm going to go. I know it's against the law. Even if it's against the law, if I die, I die. But you said God's going to rescue his people. I'm going to die either way. I might as well try to save the people. Do what I can, right? I love this. What a great benefit it is when we're willing to encourage people and challenge people to live up to that which God is calling them to. And who knows that Esther was there for such a time as this, but we could also say that Mordecai adopted her for just such a time as this, right? That happened just so that he could be there to pour this into her later on. Hey, I hope that's helped. God bless you as you teach, as you study, prepare. Thank you so much for watching today. Subscribe, comment. If you've got questions, put those down. Share it with others and like the video. It always helps us when you like the video. We'll see you next week.